what's up, champions? It's Miss Holt here with another art lesson for you guys. We're going to learn about the artist Wayne Thiebaud. Wayne Thiebaud was a pop artist in the 1950s. He is almost 100 years old and is still creating artwork. Let me introduce you to our new artist, Wayne Thiebaud, an American pop art painter known for his colorful artwork showing commonplace objects like cakes, pies, lipsticks, ice cream cones, pastries, and paint cans. He was born in Mesa, Arizona in 1920 and is almost 100 years old. He began his art career as a graphic designer and cartoonist before joining the pop art movement in the mid-1950s. He combines the elements of art, shape, color, and value to create his bright illustrative paintings. His artwork was made famous by his use of repetition, bright synthetic colors, and by painting not with a paintbrush, but with a palette knife, as if he were spreading frosting on his cakes. He updated the traditional still life genre for the pop art age of mass production and consumption. Now let's learn a little bit about the pop art movement of the 1950s and 60s.
Hi, I'm Ellie, and these are 4 of my favourite things. Bananas, my red coat, tomato soup, and comic books. But what do they all have in common? 2 little words, pop and art. Pop art is more than an art movement. It's a lifestyle, a craze, a way of looking at the world. But what is pop art? Pop is young, bold, and fun. This is life in the 40s. It's a bit grey. In the 50s, people wanted plastic and glamour. They wanted to have a good time. Buy more, spend more. Don't just watch TV, be on TV. Now you can listen to the Beatles and Elvis, watch cartoons, eat popcorn, drive cars, and become famous. Now it was pop art, all about culture. After all, pop art is popular art for all. But who were the pop artists? Richard Hamilton, this guy, said pop art was low cost, young, witty, glamorous, and mass-produced. Hamilton made collages using imagery he found in glossy magazines. Lifting images from films and advertising was completely bonkers at the time. This is one of the famous Marilyn portraits by Andy Warhol. Andy Warhol. This guy. See, a cool guy. For Andy, art was a product, the same as a production line of Coca-Cola bottles or Camel soup. He liked to use bright colours and silk screening techniques to produce art on a huge scale. Pretty clever, I say. Pop art was revolutionary! Pop artists were competitive. Who could do what first? Warhol had his advertising. Lichtenstein had his comic books. Pelosi had his collage. And Minnie Mouse. Wait, let's go back to Lichtenstein. He used Band-Aid dots to make his artwork look like comics, like the ones you get in newspapers. Female artists were also rocking the pop art trend. This is The Only Blonde in the World by English painter Pauline Botti. Pauline added fun into her art and was a bit of a rebel. Girl power, Pauline. Pop art came out of the gallery too. Nicola L. took this big red coat around the world to get people to get involved with her performance. This made a real pop crowd, not the celebrity faces in other forms of pop art. Pop art can also be found all over the world. In Iran, Parviz Tanavoli was a sculptor and painter. Like other pop artists, he made his art out of things that looked like they could be thrown away. In New York, Jean-Michel Basquiat We mixed it with hip-hop and street art. Pop is on TV, on the radio, and on the internet. Like right now. Does that mean I'm pop art? Well, there's one thing Andy Warhol and I can agree on. I don't know where the artificial stops and the real starts.
Wayne Thiebaud really liked to use the element of art value in his artwork to show 3D or 3 dimensions of his cakes and pies. He liked to use light and shadow to show where the light was coming from on his objects. So let's watch this next clip about the element of art value.
The word photograph comes from 2 Greek words that translate to light drawing. Some people describe photography then as drawing with light. Light defines objects and literally enables us to see things. Artists create the illusion of light by being able to produce a wide range of tonal and color values. Value is one of the 7 elements of art, along with line, shape, form, texture, color, and space. Value is how light or dark a given color or hue is. Values can be better understood when they are visualized as a scale or a gradient. Here's the value scale for this gray tone. It ranges from pure white to absolute black, with a number of gray tones in between. Any hue or tone has a similar scale from dark to light. Different values are created by lightening the hue, in this case adding white to it, or by darkening it with black. When an artwork has many tones in between black and white, it is considered low contrast. For instance, in this photograph by Nicholas Nixon, notice how many different shades of gray there are. A high contrast image, on the other hand, would have very few tonal values between black and white, like this photograph by Kenneth Josephson. The texture of an object's surface can play a role in how we see value. In this photograph by Brett Weston, notice how the veins in the leaves of lettuce create areas of dramatic contrast between light and dark. Compare that with this photograph of bananas, also by Weston. The skin of the bananas dulls the light, which gives the photograph much less contrast. The different ways artists create lines and implied textures can also affect how we perceive value. Notice how heavy and dark the blacks are in this charcoal drawing. Also notice how certain areas smoothly transition from dark to light. This watercolor painting's blacks aren't nearly as dark. Notice too how the shading isn't as smoothly blended. The next time you are looking at a photograph, painting, or drawing, try to notice how the artist is rendering value. And when you're creating your own artwork, practice creating value scales with a variety of different mediums and hues, so your artwork shines in its own unique way.
Alright, you're going to start in pencil. Find the center of your page here and go up a little bit higher. You're going to start your top of your cake right in this area. You're going to start by drawing an oval. Draw light until you know it's right. So lightly drawing an oval. Pulling the sides of your cake, draw 2 lines straight down from the corner. Then you're going to draw a line this way to connect the edge. So this is the basic shape of our cake. Now you're going to find the center of your circle. You're going to draw 2 straight lines to the edge of your cake. Here and here. Now you're going to draw 2 straight lines from here to the bottom of your cake, because we're drawing our cakes like they have a piece cut out of them. Now we're going to erase the curved line. This is why we draw lightly, so that we can erase without leaving any trace of our pencil being there. Okay. Now take your finger from the middle and draw down just a little bit like this. And you're going to draw a straight line down to here. You don't want to bring it all the way down, because this is the side of our cake that we cut out. Now connect these lines. The angle of this line should be the same as this line up here. These 2 lines are parallel. So now we have the shape of our cake with our piece cut out. You can leave your cake just like this, just as one layer of cake, or you can make it a multi-layer cake. I'm going to make mine 3 layers, just like the Thiebaud picture. I'm going to split this into 3. Remember, the angle of my line needs to match this angle up here. So these lines need to be parallel, all 4 of these lines. So my line's not going to go down like this or back like that. It's going to go at the same angle as my top and bottom lines. Now I'm going to make the layer for my frosting. So now to do this side, I want them to follow the same edge here, but now at this angle. Like so, like that. So make sure that your icing lines are parallel with the top part of your cake. Okay. Now we're going to draw the table that our cake is sitting on. And now we can start to think about color. So Wayne Thiebaud used lots of bright synthetic colors. That means colors that are a little bit more saturated or vibrant or brighter than the colors we have in the real natural world. So you can use whatever type of coloring material you have at home. I'm going to be using crayons. So I've decided that I want my cake to be yellow. So I'm going to start my art by coloring in the entire cake that I have yellow. You could also add a little centerpiece to your cake here. You could add like a little cherry if you wanted. But remember to be mindful of the light, because we're going to be using highlights and shadows. Okay, so I'm going to start coloring my cake. Make sure you color nice and dark, staying inside those lines. You can outline this in Sharpie if you'd like. I'm going to wait to do that a little bit later. But you could do that if you wanted to. Alright, now I'm going to color my cake in. You can choose whatever flavor cake you like. I just did a white cake, like a normal birthday cake. You could do chocolate cake and use brown, red cake and make like a red velvet cake. Whatever kind that you like, you can just choose that color. If you just want the regular white cake though, you can use like a beige or a peach color with a little bit of yellow layered on top of that. Make sure you just color it in a little bit lighter and then layer the yellow on top. I'm going through and outlining the edges of my cake pieces, just making a little bit darker just to add some detail. The next thing I'm going to do is color in that cherry there. Think about where the light source is. So in this particular drawing that I'm making, in my mind the light is coming from the right side of the cake. So if light is coming from the right side, everything on the right is going to be a little bit brighter or lighter, and everything on the left side is going to have a darker tone or be in a shadow. So I'm going to start adding my shadow. So I just imagined where my shadow would be. It would kind of cast across the table here as well from my cake slice being cut out. And I'm just using a brown crayon to lightly start building up some color of the shadow. I'm not going to do the shadow on my floor yet because I don't know what color I'm going to do the floor. So you got to think about what color things are. Because when they're in shadow, they're really just a darker tone from what the actual color is. So with the light coming from the right side, where this piece of cake is cut out is going to be in a shadow. So I'm going to lightly layer some brown. Now I'm going to take some blue, and you might be thinking, Mrs. Holt, that's crazy. Why are you going to put blue? Well, the blue helps to create more of a realistic shadow. And Wayne Thiebaud used a lot of blues in his shadows whenever he creates his cakes. So when you layer the blues on there, it's going to make more of a realistic shadow than if you were to use black or just color it in dark brown. So I'm going to layer my blue on, define that shadow a little bit more. And now because my cake is yellow, a darker color would be orange. So thinking about shadows, I'm going to add a layer of orange to the left side of my cake that would be in a shadow or in a darker side, because remember the light is hitting the right side. So if you have whatever color cake you're doing, whatever side is not in the light, make sure you're making the other side of the cake darker. You can build up layers of crayon by starting out with a light coat and then adding layers of wax, because that's what crayons are, they're made of wax. You're just adding layers on top of that to create a darker color. You can also use darker colors, like I used orange, yellow orange to start, making my shadow. Then I worked my way to orange and then to red-orange to create that kind of gradient effect where it's darker on the left and a little bit lighter on the right. Now I'm just etching out where I'm going to have my shadow on my cake and coloring in the table that my cake is sitting on. Even your table is going to be affected by the light. So it may be a little bit darker on the left and lighter on the right. Make sure you're using 4th grade coloring standards, keeping your crayon strokes or your pencil strokes all in the same direction. Remember to start lightly with the layer and build up color. You can always go darker, but you can never go light. You can't take it back. Once you put the color down or the layer down, you can't go back from that. So always start light and add more as you need it versus going too dark at the start. Now I'm just tweaking that shadow a little bit, adding a little bit more layers to it, doing the shadow on the floor, making it a little bit darker. Again, I'm using that blue. I know it seems strange. Now I'm going to work on the shadow on the table. Also, when you're choosing colors of the table or your background, think about the color wheel. So if you have a yellow cake, yellow's complementary color is purple. That's why I chose to make my table purple, because it's going to make it pop a little bit more. I wouldn't want to do a yellow table or a yellow cake and an orange table because they're just going to blend together. Now I'm just taking a black crayon. I chose to go with a black crayon instead of a Sharpie because I liked the more etchy, sketchy look that the crayon gives versus the harsh, sharp line of a Sharpie. And with the crayon, you can control the pressure, so how thick or thin or how dark the line gets. I am taking black here over the top of that blue. Again, building up these light layers. You don't want to go super harsh with the black when you're outlining, especially those areas that are brighter. I'm using my black to shade over the table a little bit, darkening the shadow behind my cake. Now I'm just going to take my orange and add a little bit of shading to the left side on the top of my cake. Make sure you're following the curve of your cake with your shading. You're going to go around in this curved angle. Remember to start lightly, especially when you're layering, and then you can always add more or go a little bit darker, but you can never go back. You can never go back lighter. You can only go darker. The last step is to color the background behind your cake. Again, think about your color wheel. Think about colors that are going to be contrasting and make each other pop out a little bit more. I used a lot of orange in this cake, and orange's complementary color is blue. So I chose to do a light blue background to help make those colors stand out and pop a little bit more. Using those 4th grade color standards, keeping your brush strokes side to side, not up and down, crazy all around. Alright, that is a finished piece in the Wayne Thiebaud Pop Art style. Remember, we use the elements of art, form, color, and value to create our artwork today. I hope you enjoyed creating with me, and I will see you all again next time.